All right, ready to dive in. Today we're tackling something pretty central to the whole wedding scene,
Oh, definitely.
wedding dress sizing.
It can be a bit of a mystery, can it?
For sure. And to help us unpack it all, we're tapping into the knowledge of Darianna Bridal and Tuxedo over in Pennsylvania.
They've had a lot of experience with this stuff.
Yeah, they really do. Now, I've heard all these things about bridal sizes being way off from, normal sizes.
Oh, yeah.
But how different are we actually talking here?
Well, it's not just a tiny bit.
Okay, so.
Bridal gowns usually run, I'd say, a whole 1 to 2 sizes smaller than regular clothes.
Whoa. Seriously. So, if I'm normally, say, a size 8 in jeans,
Yeah.
I might need a 10, maybe even a 12 in a wedding dress.
Yeah, could be.
That's kind of crazy.
It can be a surprise, for sure. There are a couple reasons for it, though. One is a lot of designers, they still use those old school sizing charts,
Oh, interesting.
from back when body shapes were different.
So they're stuck in the past with sizing.
Kind of, yeah. And then on top of that, lots of bridal sizing comes from Europe, which also runs smaller than what we're used to in the U.S.
Ah, the double whammy of tiny sizes.
Right.
And then this is what gets me. Darianna Bridal mentioned each designer has their own chart on top of all that.
Oh, yeah.
That just seems like a recipe for chaos.
It does make things tricky. No universal standard in the bridal world, which means you could be a 10 in one brand and then an 8 or even a 14 in another.
So as a bride, where do you even start?
Well, this is where a good stylist really comes in.
Okay, yeah.
Getting measured at a bridal shop is super important. They'll measure your bust, waist, and hips really accurately to get you started in the right ballpark.
So it's not just grabbing a random size off the rack.
Not at all. And there are some things about those measurements that can surprise people.
What I feel like wedding dresses are full of surprises.
For sure. For instance, your fullest hip measurement might not be where you think.
Boy, really?
Yeah. The stylists at Darianna, they often find it's actually lower down, maybe around your thighs or even your rear.
So it's not always right on the hip bone itself.
Exactly.
So you need someone who knows what they're doing to find the right spot to measure.
Definitely. Now, what happens a lot is a bride will fall between sizes.
Yeah, I bet that's super common.
It is. And in that case, the stylist will usually go with the size that matches your biggest measurement. So if your hips are the biggest, they'll likely use that to pick the size.
Makes sense. But I'm guessing the style of the dress matters too, right? Like a big ball gown versus a really fitted one.
Absolutely. The shape of the dress plays a huge role. Darianna Bridal had some good examples.
Oh, like what?
So if it's a really tight sheath dress and your hips are the largest measurement, they'd probably go a size up.
To avoid any pulling or bunching?
Exactly. You need the extra room. But if it's something like an A-line or a ball gown that's not so tight in the hips, you might be able to stick with a smaller size based on your bust.
So you're juggling measurements and the dress style to figure out the size.
Yep, it's all connected. And then, of course, we can't forget alterations. Most wedding dresses have extra fabric built in, seam allowances so they could be adjusted.
Okay, yeah, but I've heard some shops can be kind of pushy about alterations.
It's true. Some places might be quick to suggest them, even if the dress could have been ordered closer to your real size.
So what should brides watch out for?
Darianna Bridal really stresses finding a shop that's honest with you about sizing.
Yeah.
Ordering the right size from the get-go can save a ton of money on alterations later on.
That's a good tip. But what if, let's say, a bride has unique proportions and just doesn't fit into any standard size?
That's where custom sizing can be a lifesaver.
Oh yeah, what's that all about?
Some designers, they'll actually create a dress based on your exact measurements.
Wow, that's awesome. But probably pricey, huh?
It can be more upfront, but Darianna made a really interesting point. Sometimes custom sizing is actually cheaper than doing a ton of alterations.
So if you know you'll need lots of tweaking, it might be better to go custom from the start.
Exactly. Now, we also have to talk about the elephant in the room. Weight changes during the engagement.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. I know so many brides who feel pressure to stay at a certain weight.
It's a common worry, for sure, and it can add to the stress.
So what does Darianna Bridal say about that?
Their big advice is just to be realistic and open with your shop. If your weight changes after you get measured, tell them.
It's better to be upfront than to try to hide it and end up with a dress that doesn't fit.
For sure. And honestly, at the end of the day, the most important thing is to find a dress that makes you feel amazing, regardless of the size.
Right. It's not about the number, it's how it makes you feel.
Exactly. And that's Darianna Bridal's big message. Don't get hung up on the size.
I love that.
It really is all about how the dress looks and feels, not about some random number. Remember, you're not trying to fit into the dress. You're trying to find a dress that fits you.
So true. Okay, I already feel way more equipped to deal with bridal sizing, but we've only scratched the surface. We still need to talk about timing, alterations, and that whole debate about making sizing more standard.
Oh, yeah. Lots more to dive
Oh,
into.
right, my brain is still spinning from all that sizing info.
It's a lot to take in.
But now I'm thinking about the more, practical stuff.
Right.
When should a bride actually start looking for her dress? There's so much going on with wedding planning. Timing seems crucial.
Totally. Darianna Bridal recommends starting about 9 to 12 months before the wedding.
Okay, that seems like a good buffer.
Yeah. And you got to remember, these dresses aren't made overnight.
True.
It can take 4, even 5 months for a dress to be made.
Wow, really? So much for finding the perfect dress and walking out with it that day.
Yeah, not quite that simple. And then, of course, you've got to add time for alterations. Could be weeks, even months, depending on what needs to be done.
So starting early gives you wiggle room in case there are delays?
Exactly. And speaking of delays, those weight fluctuations we were talking about,
Right.
if you do gain or lose weight after you order, Darianna Bridal says, tell your shop right away.
So they can help you adjust the plan and make sure it fits on the big day?
Exactly. They're all about finding solutions and making things work.
I like that. Now, there's this term I keep hearing about, hollow to hem.
Ah.
Sounds very technical.
It's actually pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
It's the measurement from the hollow of your neck, that little dip
Okay.
down to the floor, including the height of your heels.
So basically the total length of the dress from top to bottom.
Exactly. And it's super important because wedding dresses are often made to order.
Right, to fit your height and heel height?
Exactly. You don't want a dress that's too long or too short on your wedding day.
For sure. And speaking of ordering, Darianna Bridal actually specializes in something really cool. Bridal separates.
Oh, yeah.
What's that all about?
So instead of a traditional one-piece gown, it's like a top and skirt combo.
Interesting. So you can mix and match.
Exactly. It's super flexible. You can really personalize your look.
I bet that appeals to brides who want something a little different.
Definitely. And it's great if you have strong preferences about, the top or the bottom half of your look.
I can see that. So many options. Lacy top with a flowy skirt or a beaded bodice with a satin skirt. The possibilities are endless.
Right. And it's a great way to show off your personal style.
Perfect fit. A&D, a unique look. Now, I want to circle back to that whole lack of standardization in sizing.
It's a big one, isn't it?
It seems so frustrating for brides.
It can be, having to figure out all these different size charts.
Wouldn't it be amazing if there was just one universal sizing system?
Imagine that. Walking into any shop knowing exactly what size to ask for.
No more guessing games, no more feeling disappointed when one size fits in one brand and not another.
And think about online shopping.
Oh, yeah?
It would be so much easier to order online if you knew for sure what size you were.
Those are some serious perks. But I'm guessing there are also some downsides to that, right?
Right. There are definitely some valid concerns. One of the big worries is that one standard size just wouldn't work for all the different body types out there.
Yeah, a size 10 on someone petite is going to look totally different than a size 10 on someone curvier.
Exactly. And then think about dress silhouettes.
Right.
We talked about how a sheath dress might need a different size than an A-line, even on the same person.
True. So maybe forcing everyone into the same mold would kind of stifle creativity in the bridal world?
That's a big worry for designers. They don't want to be limited in how they design dresses.
So it's kind of a trade-off.
It is. Easier shopping on the one hand, but potentially less choice and more generic designs on the other.
It's a tough one. I'm fascinated by this whole debate. I never thought so much went into something like sizing.
It's a whole world of its own. And speaking of which, we should talk about fabrics.
Oh, yes. Fabrics are everything when it comes to wedding dresses. But how do they actually impact sizing and fit?
Well, first you have the weight of the fabric. Something heavy, like satin or mikado, that tends to hold its shape and make the dress more structured.
So like a satin ball gown would have that really full, dramatic skirt.
Exactly. Now compare that to a lighter fabric like chiffon or tulle.
Yeah.
Those are much more flowy. They create a softer, more romantic look.
Total Grecian goddess vibes.
Exactly. And then there's lace, which can be lightweight or heavier, depending on the type. It can add texture, dimension, even a vintage feel.
So many choices. But what about stretch? I feel like that's got to be important for fit.
It is. Some fabrics, like jersey or crepe, they have a lot of stretch, which can be really forgiving.
So they kind of move with you.
Right.
Yeah.
They hug your curves without feeling too tight. So those could be good options for brides who are concerned about their measurements changing or just want a more comfortable fit.
Makes sense. So what about fabrics with less stretch?
Well, those require a more precise fit. Something like silk taffeta or organza,
Yeah.
they're less forgiving, so getting the sizing right and thinking about alterations is even more important.
Wow, I'm realizing how much goes into choosing the right fabric. It's not just how it looks, it's how it feels, how it hangs, how it moves.
It's a whole package deal.
Yeah.
It's finding that balance between your style, your body, and the look you're going for. And that's where a good stylist can be super helpful.
They can help you navigate all those decisions.
Exactly. Speaking of helpful tips, undergarments are important too.
Right.
The right ones can really make a difference.
So you can't just wear your everyday bra with your wedding dress.
Probably not. It's best to talk to your stylist.
Yeah,
They can tell you what will work best with a specific dress,
makes sense.
whether it's a strapless bra, a bustier shaping shorts, even petticoats.
So many details. It's not just about the dress size, it's the fabric, the undergarments, even the shoes you're wearing.
It all comes together to create the final look. Now, we can't forget about alterations.
Oh yes, alterations, the word every bride both loves and fears.
Right. They're a necessary part of the process, but they can be a little nerve-wracking.
For sure, you're trusting someone to make this super important dress fit perfectly.
Exactly. So, what do brides need to know about alterations? First, find a good seamstress, someone who specializes in wedding dresses.
How do you even find someone like that? Ask the bridal shop.
That's a great place to start. They usually have recommendations.
Okay, so you've got your seamstress. What's next?
Usually they'll have a consultation with you. Take your measurements, check the fit of the dress, talk about what you want to change.
So you can tell them exactly what you're envisioning.
Right. They might even pin the dress on you to show you how it'll look after the alterations.
That's helpful. So what kind of things can they do? Is it mostly taking the dress in, making it smaller?
It can be, but they can also let it out if it's too small, shorten the hem, add straps or sleeves, even make bigger changes to the shape.
Wow, they can really customize it.
Exactly. And how many fittings you need depends on how much you're changing in their schedule.
Okay, that makes sense. But let's talk about the cost. I've heard alterations can get really expensive.
It definitely varies. Something simple, like hemming, might not cost much.
But what if you need bigger alterations?
Well, if you're doing major changes to the shape or adding a lot of beading or lace, that can get pricey. But remember, a lot of those costs can be avoided by ordering the right size from the start.
Right, right. Get those initial measurements right and be honest about your body and what you like.
Exactly. And
Hmm.
speaking of getting the right fit, we talked about custom sizing earlier.
Oh, yeah. Tell me more about that.
It's perfect for brides who don't fit standard sizes or just want a completely personalized dress.
So it's literally made just for you.
Exactly. They'll take all your measurements, bust, waist, hips, hollow to hem, all of it.
And then they send that to the designer.
Yep. And the designer uses those measurements to create the dress. It's a really detailed process.
So no more trying to squeeze into a dress that's almost right.
Exactly. And can be a real confidence boost to know your dress is made just for you.
Okay, I'm sold. Is it available for any dress?
Not every designer offers it, so it's good to ask early on.
Okay, will do. And what about the cost? I'm guessing it's more expensive than buying off the rack.
It can be,
Mm.
but it's often similar to buying a dress and then doing a lot of alterations. Sometimes it can even be cheaper.
Interesting. So if you know you'll need a lot of alterations anyway,
It might be smarter to go custom from the start.
good to know.
Mm.
And custom sizing isn't just about the measurements, is it?
Right. You can customize other things too, like the neckline, sleeve length, the train, even adding embellishments.
Wow, you can really personalize it.
Exactly. Make it truly your own.
Mm,
This whole deep dive has been so eye-opening.
I know, right?
It's amazing how much goes into finding the perfect dress.
But before we wrap up, I have to ask about the emotional side of things.
Oh, yeah.
Seems like such a big deal for brides finding their dress.
It's a huge moment.
Yeah.
A lot of brides have been dreaming about this since they were little girls.
It's a lot of pressure to find a dress that makes you feel beautiful and confident on such a big day.
Absolutely. And that's where a bridal consultant can be so much more than just someone who helps you find a dress.
Right, it's not just about the style and size.
They provide emotional support too. Guidance, reassurance,
Like a cheerleader and therapist all rolled into one.
pretty much. They help you stay focused, encourage you when you're feeling overwhelmed, and they celebrate with you when you find the perfect dress.
So finding a consultant you really connect with is key.
Totally. The right consultant can make the whole experience fun and memorable instead of stressful. They guide you, they support you, they make you feel confident.
And that's what every bride deserves.
For sure. It's all about celebrating love and finding the dress of your dreams.
Wow, we've learned so much in this deep dive.
I know. It's amazing how much goes into finding the perfect wedding dress.
From sizing secrets to fabrics, alterations, even custom sizing.
There's a lot to it.
But if we had to boil it all down, what are the biggest takeaways for our listeners? The ones getting ready to start their own dress hunt.
I think the most important thing is to, go into it with an open mind and excitement.
Right, be open to the experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And don't get too caught up in finding the one right away or feeling like you have to fit a certain mold.
It's about how the dress makes you feel, not the size on the tag.
That's it. Focus on how you feel in the dress, not the number. Remember, this is your day, your style.
I love that. And it's okay to ask for help, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Bridal consultants are there to guide you.
They're a wealth of knowledge.
So ask questions. Tell them what you're looking for.
Yeah, communication is key.
From getting measured to talking about alterations.
And if you start to feel overwhelmed, remember what Darianna Bridal said. Don't panic.
They're good at calming those nerves.
There's always a solution.
This whole deep dive has been such an eye-opener.
It's a fascinating world, isn't it?
I had no idea there was so much to it.
There's so much that goes into making these beautiful dresses.
It's not just fashion, it's like an art form.
It really is. And speaking of making it special, Darianna Bridal had one more piece of advice that I thought was great.
Oh, what's that?
Make the whole dress shopping experience a celebration.
Yeah, I like that.
Invite your friends, your family.
Pop some champagne.
Have fun with it.
It's easy to get caught up in the stress of wedding planning.
It really is.
But this is supposed to be a joyful time.
Exactly. Embrace the excitement, enjoy the moment, and have fun finding the perfect dress for your big day.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, I think that about wraps it up for our deep dive into wedding dress sizing.
Time flies when you're talking about dresses.
It really does. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We hope you learned something new and that you feel more prepared for your own wedding dress journey.
It was great chatting with you.
And to all our listeners out there, we wish you all the best with your wedding planning. Remember, it's not just about the dress, it's about celebrating love and starting a new chapter together.
Cheers to that.
Until next time, happy dress hunting.